What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Global Podcast. I am your host, Maximus Titan Fan, and is with me, as always, is my good buddy Link. What's up, bro?
What's going on, guys? Good to be here again. We got here on time. We had a few technical difficulties before the show, and we'll talk about some difficulties the Titans had on Sunday. So, good little segue there. But as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Most importantly, get on the comment section. We want to see what you guys think about this one as we move forward into the back half of this season. And if you're already subscribed, give us a share. We want to get to as many people as possible. And with that, we will get right into it.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, man. You know, the first thing Link said when we got linked up about this, and he said literally, "What kind of positive? Do you have any positives to talk about in this game?" And I was like, "Man, I had to dig, but you know me, I am ever the optimist. I will find a silver lining in everything." So yeah, so we're gonna talk about maybe some positives that came out of this game and a lot of negatives. But we'll start off with the fact of one thing that was positive. I was right again about the over under, man. I swear to God, I might start actually laying a bet on that.
There you
Because
go.
of course, as soon as I do, I'll be wrong. That's how the game goes. But that's all right, man. Uh Yeah, yeah. Overall thought to start the show, embarrassing. I wish I could say what I want to say, but I don't because I don't want to, I don't want to use that many four-letter words in a sentence to start the show. But we got beat by the worst team in the NFL with their backup quarterback. By the way, which is the fourth time we've lost to a backup quarterback.
Yeah, my thing initially is look, this was the first road win for the Jags since Thanksgiving weekend of last year. Like you have a bad football team with a backup quarterback and they roll into Nashville. You have control of the game through most of it, and then you find a way to lose. And if I had a headline this week, I mean that's it. Like you found a way to lose this game, and it's just not converting big plays. And we'll get into the specifics of that and what I think that means for the coaching staff and the quarterback. But yeah, I mean it's just I think disappointment is the first thing that comes to mind. Like this was one of those that you felt was winnable. It was supposed to be winnable. You were favored, um, and you come out and you fall flat. So I don't know, like where's your mind at going forward? I guess like where again, I feel like I'm asking this every week, but what's the hole right now for you? What's the biggest need?
Right now, our biggest need, in my opinion, oh man, it's hard to really tell, but I mean our biggest need is not feasibly gotten in this draft. So I feel like our biggest need after that is edge. I mean our biggest need obviously is a quarterback. I mean, I'll be real, even last week I was saying, "Oh, I'm off a train on a train." But God bless, man. He didn't even make mistakes. It was just the fact that he didn't do enough. And not only that, you can't. Oh man, I don't know. All right,
Is
so
this
I'm gonna
is
move on
this
from
is
there.
well no because I there's two things I want to build off
He
that.
said no.
One, I can't help it. Is this Will Levis's ceiling? Like were we did we think that his talent, did we think that his arm talent could make him in the category of elite, or like are we finally seeing like the happy medium? Like we've seen the really really good and we've seen the really really bad, but if you believe that he's played his best 4 games of football, or the best month of football, like maybe this is just his ceiling. Maybe he's a mediocre, maybe number 2 quarterback in the league right now. Like are you, is that where you're at with it? Do you think this is the best version of Will Levis that this coaching staff can get?
No, no, no. I feel like there is still a ceiling to Levis that we haven't seen yet. But oh man, uh, there's a lot to go over with his performance in this game. Uh, mostly because the way that this coach likes to call plays is not tailored to Will Levis's game. I mean, it's not nearly as much as I thought it was in the offseason. Not seeing his game plan put out. Because, we assume that he automatically wanted to do what the Bengals do. And that's just wrong. That they don't do what the Bengals do. He has a completely different idea of what an offense should look like. Well, not completely different, but different enough from Zach Taylor that I don't know if Will Levis can really play effectively in his offense the way he wants to. Uh, he likes to throw quick screens, short out routes, and stuff like that to set up the deep pass. And I just
You're saying that's what Callahan wants to do? That's Callahan's
yes,
goal? Okay.
that is Callahan's play calling style from what I've seen so far. Other than 8 run plays in a row. What the man? Anyway, we'll get into that later. But
So
this is talking about Levis. Go ahead.
so two questions. What scheme? So you told me kind of what Callahan wants to do. What scheme do you think is best suited for Levis? Like what if you were building this offense based on what Callahan's doing, what would you do different? Like because what I'm seeing, the reason I ask this is because what I'm seeing is I am seeing a quarterback who is struggling with the things that this coach wants him to do. But then at that point, is it then on the coach to adjust what he wants to do to fit the quarterback to win games? That's kind of where I'm at with it. So I would just be curious, like with you saying that, like what offensive scheme do you feel like is best for Will Levis? If it's not the out routes to set up the deep ball and that type, the quick screen, like what would you do with Will Levis?
I mean, to be honest, the best thing to do with Will Levis is to have a bell. I mean, it's the Derrick Henry offense. I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
oh my God. I mean, it's oh man, it's rough. I don't really have a great answer for that, but I feel like it would be variables type of offense where you have a lot of run, heavy run,
Mhm.
and then the play action pass. God, but if that's his ceiling, then I don't know. I feel like more of a West Coast type offense is what he thinks he is, but that's not it.
Exactly.
That's not it because Cali actually runs pretty close to what is a West Coast offense. It's like a West Coast offense with a I formation and stuff like that, old
Yeah.
school sprinkled in runs. Um, but it's not tailored to Will Levis. I will say that. And what is tailored to Will Levis? Well, I don't freaking know, man. Because nothing's really like, even with Vrabel, he didn't, and Henry, I mean, he didn't wow us or anything. And yeah, he had a crappy offensive line. He has a crappy well, not a crappy offensive line. It's better than it was last year, but it's just not great. And that's always going to be the excuse for the people that are hailing for Will Levis to continue this road that we're on is,
Mhm.
oh well, he doesn't have enough time. He has heat in his face all the time, which is a valid excuse. But I don't know. I just didn't see enough in this game, and the fact that he couldn't complete the simple passes, it worries me. It really does.
Okay, so and I promise I'm getting to a bigger point here, but if you go back to last year and the games we saw Levis play in where he was extremely successful in Vrabel's offense, well, not Vrabel's offense, but Vrabel's coaching staff, their offense.
Yeah.
Um, when you go back to those successful games he has, and I know there's a lot of areas you can point to, like we talk about the interceptions, like some of those balls thrown last year probably should have been picks and they weren't. So if you go back to then and you say, okay, we saw him do the things he was good at, he had Derrick Henry in the backfield. Like, is that what you're missing? Like, why have we seen the regression? If that makes sense. Like, why are we not seeing the things we saw last year? Because I don't think defenses are preparing any differently. You still have a really good run game in Tony Pollard, the same way you had with Derrick Henry last year. Like, why are we seeing failures where we saw successes last year? What's been the cause for regression?
I feel like, as with the way I was, I think a lot of us Titans fans were expecting more from this team, from this coaching staff. I feel like he probably bought into the hype the same way a lot of people do. And I think that's really the problem with Will Levis. And it's the same thing last 3 or 4 weeks. He was on a roll. You see it. As his confidence gets higher, he plays worse. So he plays best as an underdog. He plays best with a chip on his shoulder. When nobody believes in him, that's when he does well. So it's just the most frustrating thing in the world, because when you finally start to go, okay, all right, I think he's finally turned a corner. I think he's going to make it now. No, he's still the same frustrating quarterback that you had before.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent. I just it makes me wonder because I don't know. Again, I've been critical of this coaching staff, but just like you talked about, just the things that don't fit Will Levis, I feel like that's on the coach as much as it is the quarterback. And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to give anybody a free pass because I think that Will Levis, for him to get up at the podium and essentially say he's really happy with his game other than two throws, like that's a problem for me
Oh
because like
yeah.
you played your first game of this season without an offensive touchdown. Like that's a problem for me. But it's also a problem for me when Brian Callahan gets up at the podium and says things to be positive about. And then he was asked by Paul Koharski, like, you didn't score a touchdown. Like how is there anything positive to take from this? And that, like, some of those things I feel like, and I'm not, I promise I'm gonna get to some positives, but I feel like this is a team with a quarterback and a head coach who are simply in over their head. That's what it gives to me. Like that's the vibe I get. I don't know that Will Levis is ready to take that next step in this type of offense, and I don't know that Callahan can really adjust what he wants to do because he's just never done this before. And I'm not on the train. Like I don't think you fire him in the season, but like the seat has to be a little bit hotter after this loss. I mean, this is the worst team in the NFL. It was the one team on your schedule at this point where you said, "Hey, we can go in and move the ball against them. We can go get yardage. We can throw the like this defense for the Jags is atrocious. I mean, statistically, they're the worst in the league. And then you go into a game where I've got the stats here. I mean, you were 4.5 yards a carry, which is really good. You're +2 in the turnover battle. You won the time of possession. You're 8 of 16 on third down. Like you should have won this game. But because of your red zone offense and your red zone defense, your situational football and your quarterback, you found a way to lose. So I don't know who I can put most of the blame on at this point, but I'm starting to have more and more questions as far as this
Well,
staff goes.
that was that. I'd like to try to pose a good question every show. And that was my question for this show: is who is to blame for this show, for this loss? Is it the coaching staff with play calling, or the coaches haven't developed the players enough, or is it players and execution? And it's not. I mean, where does the blame lie? I even had a couple people say the ownership, which I thought that was crazy. But
Yeah, I mean, look, it can be both. Like both things can be true. You can have a bad roster and a bad coaching staff. Like both things can be 100% true. So I don't think it's an either or situation. I think at this point you're playing not who is to blame, but what's the percentage of blame that you give to each person. I think that's where I'm at with it. And yeah, like some games go on early, the games were on Will Levis. Then you had some games on the special teams. Now you have some games on the coaching staff. But the common denominator there for me is the coaching staff. So when I'm applying blame to this thing, I'm putting the majority of that on this coaching staff because other than your rookies, I have not seen development, especially from the quarterback position. And like that's what you were brought in for. That's exactly what you were brought in for. You were brought in because you have a long, storied history with franchise quarterbacks and you know how to put them in positions to win. And that's why I'm saying I do think he probably gets an opportunity to go get his guy. But now we're sitting here this season like, okay, what guy is there to even get? I mean, because I feel like Will Levis is going to be here next year just for lack of a better option, and you're probably going to have a competition, but I don't think Bill Callahan's going to get his guy this offseason, if that makes sense.
No, and I agree with you. And that is really
Or
where the
Brian
problem
Callahan. I think
lies.
I said Bill again, but Brian Callahan. My bad.
Yeah, we all know, who you mean, but
Yep.
yeah, it was we beat them. You were talking about scores earlier. We beat them in every aspect of the game. There is, except for, obvious scoring, touchdown, red zone. But other than that, like, we beat them time of possession. They only had 20 more total yards as a team than we did. I mean, the stats are stupid, ridiculous how close it was. And I even said before that we were a very like team. Our stats were really close to each other. But I did not expect us to play this close. And the fact that, like you said, man, there were both to blame. Because you look at the play calling, you see the 2-yard run by Tony Pollard, and then 3 incomplete passes by Will Levis. One with wide open Chig Okonkwo, which is right where he's throwing. He threw right over his head to the guy behind him. So that right there tells you that the dude just is lacking. And at this point in his career, after having a full 16 games under your belt, you really should be starting to get a grasp of the game, at least enough to know that when you see somebody wide open that's just 5 or 10 feet from the dude you're trying to throw it to, you should probably throw it to that guy instead. And the fact that he came out and said there was only 1 or 2 throws, like you said, just frustrates me to no end with this kid. And you have to feel a little bit for Callahan and some of the, I had some funny, with the who's to blame. I had either people saying Nick Holtz too, and I was like, what does Nick Holtz have to do with any of this? I mean, yeah, he's supposed to be trying to help with the passing game coordination, but I mean, what other than just a voice as to what he thinks might or might not work, Nick Holtz doesn't have any dog in this fight. It's all about Brian Callahan and the way he calls plays, and Levis and the other players not being able to execute the plays that he wants. That's
well, yeah.
frustrating.
Well, and here, but even to that point, so you're absolutely, and Will Levis's explanation for that, which was, I saw the open guy right after I threw the ball. It's like, okay, well, that's not what you're supposed to do as a quarterback. But thanks for the insight. We love this insight. I mean, this is the most. Do you remember at the beginning of the season? I'm going to get back to my point, but do you remember at the beginning of the season? It's like, man, I really want to hear from these players. They might bring back the meet and greet to the Titans, and they're going to be so open. And then they get to the podium and just
now
say
it's
the
just like, shut up
stuff every single week. Like this, hey, be careful what you wish for. That's all I got to say. But that was Will Levis's explanation. Oh, I saw the guy right after I threw it. Like, oops, my bad. But okay, here's my other thing. Do you know why he saw the guy right after he threw it? Because you had 2 players in the exact same spot on the field. Go watch Detroit's tape. Go watch the Chiefs tape. Go watch the Bengals tape. There is not a lot of plays where put two, I believe, tight ends. I think it was both tight ends within 3 yards of each other. So even the play design there, like I don't spread your guys out. Like that's what this offense is supposed to be, is a spread, air raid, pro style offense. Like that's what we expect. So even on the play calls, like I agree that Will Levis isn't making the plays to the best of his ability, but I don't know that the plays are being called to the best of this team's ability. Like that's where I'm at with it. It's a percentage of blame thing for me. That's just
I totally agree, but you also have to throw back on that I mean, in all respect, we should have had another touchdown in that game because Tony Pollard scored a touchdown, but it was called back because of poor execution by Dylan Radins.
Yep. And it definitely was a hold. Like everybody's in agreement.
Yeah.
He tackled.
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't even close, dude. He threw him to the ground and then laid on top of him, did the whole sumo wave thing.
And here's the point I wanted to get to. And this goes to personnel coaching. This kind of encompasses everything. But the problem I have, a biggest issue with is their situational play calling, situational coaching, situational execution. I mean, teams are 8 of 10, that's 80% on fourth down against this team. You have the worst red zone defense in the NFL. And then you displayed this week that when you get in the red zone, you can't put points on the board. So it's like when they get into these, I don't even want to say short yardage, but when the field shortens, when you get into the situation where the field shortens, you've got your go-to plays, you've got your, this is what we want to call this week, this is what we feel comfortable with. You can't convert those plays. Those are supposed to be your best plays. And we can't convert anything in the red zone, offense or defense. So it's just, to me, that's where the biggest problem lies with this team, is just the situational, emotional type stuff. And I'm just left with so many holes, and I don't know where to start patching.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you any, dude. It's not great play calling. Like I said, I'm frustrated with the play calling. Obviously, I've already mentioned eight rushing plays to start the game, which I kept thinking, after 3 or 4 running plays, I was like, oh man, he is setting them up for a play action pass. It's coming. I even told my wife, it's like, watch, it's coming. It's coming. Punt. What the hell, man? I don't understand. I don't get that. I don't understand that. And then again, when you get into the red zone, 3 passing plays in a row.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
And that's the part that I had a little bit of problem with. As far as execution goes, the players, yeah, they sucked. Most of the players sucked anyway. I'm not taking anything away from. I think Sweat's playing hurt, so I think his play is down just because he's playing hurt right now. Simmons played good. Reese played pretty good.
Really good. I thought Reese looked really good. Two
I'll say
quarterback
this:
hits, pass deflection. Like I was very impressed with Reese.
he should have been starting, or he should have been in the game a lot sooner than this point in the season. And I'll say that's another knock on the coaching staff. Of course, also you have to think about, well, I don't know, what's his name? Dr. Gibby was ahead of him. All right, well, maybe that's not crazy, but to have Baker ahead of him, you can't tell me Baker was popping off in practice like Reese is doing in that game. I'm sorry, it's just not. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So I guess there's a few positives in this game, but man, not many. I'll be honest with you.
Cheeto got a pick, first game back. There's a plus. Little look forward to next year. Hopefully he can stay healthy, stay on the right track. Really hoping he can finish these last 4 games. Super excited to see if he can continue that success, because hey, that's what we brought him here for, was to generate turnovers, and he does it in his first game back.
Thank you, Michael, bringing a little bit of lightheartedness back to the show. Oh man.
Hey, speaking of receivers, I told y'all NWI wasn't a number 2. I mean, hey, that pass was a little bit high. But all I'm saying is, I love NWI, but I got to get a little I told you so, because he had hands on the ball, should have made the catch. That's another play you can look at the personnel where it's like, yeah, if you get your hands on it, you got to make that play. And if you're Nick Westbrook-Akina and you want that number 2 wide receiver money, you have to make those plays. I don't care how many times you catch touchdowns. What we're going to look as the ones you didn't catch.
I will eat that crow. I will. Just because, I mean, but none of the wide receivers did great this week.
No.
Nobody was creating big separation. I've went over. All right, look, I can't say I've gone over the tape. I ain't watched it 2 or 3 times or anything obsessive like that, because let's face it, as a longtime Titans fan, I've even said it a couple times this year. Oh, I've been a part of the 3-win, 4-win teams back in the old Jeff Fisher days. I know what it's like to trudge through some some terrible seasons, but this was one of the worst outings of a Titans game I've ever seen. It was just flat terrible, and it's hard to watch. So watching it again was even harder, and to try to watch it 2 or 3 times, or 3 or 4 times, to try to catch the little nuances like the wide receivers breaking out and stuff like that. I'm just not. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't do it with this game. But still, I didn't notice anybody popping off other than the big, obvious one to Chig that was completely wide open.
Have you noticed how successful this team is when they really get their tight ends involved? I mean, if you look at some of the biggest plays on this offense come from the tight end position, and I don't know how you. So look, you're looking at a team that kept 5 tight ends on the roster on cut day. David Martin Robinson, Chig, Wiley, Vanette. Who am I missing? Am I missing one? I don't know, but you kept 4 or 5 tight ends on this roster, and then we get into this season, we see a lot of success when you use them, but we haven't seen them used enough. Like that's the issues I see. It's just the inconsistencies, even from that, even just from a roster and personnel point. Like that's, I don't know. I just keep finding things that just tick me off. And now you're sitting here like, what tight ends do you keep? Because we've seen Chig make big plays. I mean, is he in line for a contract? You've seen Wally. I mean, you've still got him on a really cheap deal. But these are things you have to start thinking about now with 4 games left. And even like the heavy run game early. I mean, did we agree 2 to 3 weeks ago that the rest of this season is about evaluating Will Levis? Did everybody pretty much universally agree on that? Okay, why are we running 8 out of 10 times on the first drive? Like that's not. You have to figure out what you have in these players. Like this is experimental type stuff that you just have to go for. And it's like we're playing it safe as a 3-win football team. So I digress. Little things like that get me going.
No, you're all good, brother. Our scoring drive, or our scoring summary for the entire game, is only 4 drives. Mm-hmm. So there's really not much on either side of the ball that was doing anything to raise the eyebrows or pump the needle on this game. It was a bad outing. But some more to talk about. Maybe even some more positive stuff. You'll have to come back and see. Hang around anyway. It's only 40 seconds, y'all. Chill out. What's up, Titans fans? Maximus Titan fan here. Are you in need of professional excavation services? Look no further. Red Zone Builders has the expertise, experience, and equipment to handle all or any excavation project, big or small. Whether you need land clearing, site preparation, trenching, foundation excavation, or any other excavation services, they have you covered. Their team of skilled professionals work diligently to ensure your project is completed safely, efficiently, and to your satisfaction. Trust the experts at Red Zone Builders to get the job done right. All right, so one other, I told you it wasn't that bad.
Hey, the only people more mad than Titans fans about this season?
Oh, for God's sake.
Hellman's Mayo. They're so pissed. They're so pissed.
Did you notice, by the way, commercial count, did you notice Saturday they were all over the place?
I did not.
Was it like that for you?
I did not know. It could have been. I did not notice. I mean, are you talking about during like college football games?
I'll be honest with you. Most of Saturday I was gone.
Yeah.
But then when I came home, it was late at night. I watched the what was the late night game? Damn it, I can't even remember who I watched now. But it was a really good game. Kept going back and forth.
Yeah, there was some decent ones, but yeah, I just wonder. I'm really curious, like if we could pull up the stock price on Hellman's and see if that fluctuates at all with the quarterback, because we could be in for some pretty decent money if we could find a correlation there.
It was Penn State and Oregon.
Yeah.
That was a really good game. But in that game, I swear to God, I counted like 7 to 10 of those Mayo commercials where he's like doing the splits on the Mayo bottles. And he's like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, pretty fitting because the Titans looked like a great college team on Sunday. Like it was one of the best college games over the weekend, in my opinion, when you take the Jags and the Titans. Yeah, I give it 5 stars as far as college football goes.
Man, that was, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to watch that at any level. I'm just being real, man. Levis was 19 to 32, 168. No touchdowns, no interceptions, which he thinks is a good thing. Oh, I didn't have no touchdowns or interceptions. I'm good.
One of his best, according to him, it was one of his best outings all year. That
that's the problem.
According to him. Exactly.
That's the problem right there. I'm sorry, bro, but if you think 170 yards with no touchdowns is going to get you anywhere in this league, you are sadly mistaken. I mean, who are you watching? Everybody I know that wins in the NFL in the regular passes usually for over 300 yards, averages about 2.5 touchdowns per game, maybe a half an interception or a third of an interception every game, something like that.
Speaking of Oregon, do you think Mariota was a more consistent player than Will Levis? Like, let's just go there. I think when you look at I don't even want to say ceiling, because I think the ceiling for Mariota is kind of about the same level as Will Levis. I think the ceiling would be about the same. Honestly, I think that you got some of the good things with less mistakes from Mariota. I mean, I'm at that point.
I'll be honest with you, man. MMA was put in a bad situation.
Oh yeah.
Every single year he had a different offensive line or a different offensive coach. He's trying to learn a new offense every single year. And I mean, to be honest, the new coach didn't want him. And that's just kind of how it happened.
To be fair, though, you brought a player in, and as a quarterback, he was flat. Like, there was – I'm not saying the guy wasn't a leader, but he wasn't a vocal dude. He wasn't – I don't think he's what that coaching staff wanted, not because of his play, but kind of just because of his – not that he had a bad attitude. He just didn't have that self-motivating leadership quality that they wanted. Tannehill had that. Let's be honest. Tannehill had that leadership quality.
What you're talking about there is we have two ends of the spectrum. We have MMA, who is calm and, chill demeanor no matter what, doesn't have hardly any leadership skills or we'll say leadership qualities of making your other players better. And then we have Will Levis, who is the most intense quarterback in the freaking world. And you know what I'm saying? Can we not find somebody who's happy medium? Can we not hit somewhere in the, does it always have to be black or white? Titans?
You had him.
Can we not hit a gray area?
You had him.
You
had him in Tannehill. Frustrates.
Dude, come on, man. Tannehill was playing scared his last year.
That's
why he's gone.
He was. I absolutely agree.
There's a reason nobody offered him a job in the offseason, because everybody knows that he's done because the way he was playing. But at the same time, is Will Levis a better answer?
Exactly. Yep. And I agree. He was running scared that last year. And I think a lot of that had to do with offensive line struggles. He started seeing ghost the same way that Will Levis is now. I mean, it got in his head. He started running for his life before he had to. And I think just like Tannehill had a fresh start here in Miami, I think that's kind of the road we're moving to with Will Levis. I think he would probably be better off down the road with a fresh start somewhere else as a number 2 coming in his competition. But now even you're left with, okay, but what do you do? And that's the biggest thing I'm kind of ringing around in my head, because we went into this season during this off season, let me put it this way. At the very end of last year, at the end of the 17th game last year, you felt okay about the trajectory of this team, about the future of this team. It's okay. You have Will Levis. You think you've got something in him. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, and then you bring in a Calvin Ridley, and then you're thinking, okay, the only holes we really have left on this team are maybe the linebacker core, the safety position. Then you go clean up the linebacker core, and you try some different things at safety. But you felt like you were just maybe 2-3 puzzle pieces away from putting this thing together. And now we sit here with 4 games left in this season, and we're thinking, okay, we need a quarterback. We're definitely going to need a safety. We just traded away a good linebacker. We're going to have to fill that position. We don't know what happened to our edge rush. Harold Landry didn't come back like we expected. Arden Key's been a disappointment. We know we're going to need an edge rush. We've got to get depth at corner because Snead and Awuzie, they're good when they're there, I guess. But now you're going to have to get some more depth at that position. So within the course of this season, you've created more holes on this team that you have to go fill. You trade away Hopkins. You now have Ridley, who I'd rather be in number 2. So I just think we're sitting here and it's like, where do you start? You've got to clean up right tackle. You fix left tackle. I don't know if you want to keep Raines at right guard. Like that's what I struggle with the most. And I know we'll get into that more this offseason, but just to get through these last 4 games, it's like, I'm just trying to find our biggest need and go from there.
I don't blame you, man. I mean, it seems pretty doom and gloom. I'm not gonna lie. There's not a whole lot to be positive about with this football team, and especially the way we're playing right now.
Well, and then and I'm done after this, but then you lose to the Jags, but you're still picking behind them. Like it's like a storybook of how bad this thing could go. Oh, and by the way, Jaquan Jackson is still leading in Pro Bowl votes. Like we're still in a world where I don't know. This season's kind of been. I still find some positives. I think Pollard's been good. I think you've got some young guys that have a lot of talent. It's like this season has just been a nightmare.
I will agree with you. This season has not been at all what we wanted as Titans fans. It's put Cali on a hot seat. I don't know if I want to say it's hot, but it is definitely heating up.
It's warm.
Yeah, it's getting there. But I do want to say one positive thing before I move into this last section or segment of the show that I want to talk about. And I definitely want to get y'all's thoughts on this. But first of all, Tony Pollard, nice bright spot of the football team. Should have had a touchdown, but got 100 yards again. And only needs 63 yards to hit 1,000-yard season. I know that's not a hugely celebrated number anymore, but any back that is in a split back system, which he did technically start in and kind of still is, but let's face it, he's our lead back. Impressive. Dude has done nothing but impress me all season. Very super reliable. Very worth the money. Worth the money for sure. Happy with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I mean, he's 9th in the league in rushing. If you told me that coming into this season that you were going to lose Derrick Henry, replace him with Tony Pollard, and he would be 9th in rushing, like I would be okay with that. Like that's acceptable for me. And on that same note, kind of future projections, I do have I think it's positive. Over under, do you think Calvin Ridley's 1,000-yard receiver this year? I think he has 837. So I mean that's good. Look, if you bring in Calvin Ridley, even with the drops, if he puts together the end of the season where he surpasses 1,000 yards, like I think that's a win. Because even if this guy isn't your number 1 going forward, I think that makes him a very good case for your number 2.
I also agree with that. And I think that Calvin Ridley as a second option is great.
I do too.
You also need someone who can throw the ball that can read more than one option. So there's that. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm more hard on myself.
I was positive.
I was going to say
negative that time. That was on you.
I'm more hard on myself for believing in this kid again, man. All right. So anyway, pose my question. If we lose every game this season and the rest of the games look like this game, which is largely just a mess. Other than, I do have to admit, I forgot to mention this. I meant to mention this way before because I thought it was really funny that the rest of the team sucked ass and this part of the team actually did well, just in the fact that they did what they were supposed to. But special teams, hey, 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 there's no turnovers. There's, they tackled the people. There wasn't any big boost returns. So, yay. Hey, give that. Give that. All right. Because literally, we haven't had, 8, 9 games in a row now. We haven't been able to say that. So, hey,
That's your boy
hey,
Mason Kinsey out there too.
that
I mean,
I was
hey,
gonna say that does not save your damn job, Mr. Anderson. I hope you are gone at the end of the season. Anyway, my point is, Coach Callahan, if we lose every single game this season and we still look like this at the end of the season, we're still having questions about multiple positions at the end of the season. Is there any way you fire Coach Callahan at the end of the
there's
season?
definitely a way. There's definitely a way. I mean, I look this game at least turned the heated seats on. Um, but I think it's a tough question because it's really hard to say if you don't know the conversations that are going on behind closed doors that we're not privy to. Because right now, by the way, this was a game where management was in attendance. Amy Adams Strunk was at this game. I think that's definitely notable. And I think right now if there's not, there should be conversations being had within her own head that's saying, why, okay, I hired this guy. These were the good things I saw about him. These were the things I trusted in him to deliver. And then you have to ask, is the original talent that I brought in good enough to run a better roster? And I don't know the answer to that right now. I think that it's very, very possible that he gives himself another year with a guy that he wants at quarterback. Maybe not his perfect solution, but a guy that he wants to run his system. But yeah, I also think there's a world where they lose these last games and it looks like this one, and you blow this thing up because that's your next step. If you do end up firing Callahan, your next step is just to blow everything up and start from the foundation. And that's tough to do because when you do that, you have to also say, hey, we're probably looking at least another couple years of this. Depending how well we draft, depending who we bring in to replace him, we're looking at another year of this. And I think Callahan right now is just a guy who, to me, looks like he's in over his head, as I said before. Um, and I just think he has coaching experience, but not head coaching experience. And if we were in a situation where we were hiring another head coach, I think that's one of the first things I would look at was, has this guy had some form of success doing this job before? Because the guy that we had in there, we thought that, and then he came in and proved the opposite. So yeah, I think there's a world where that happens.
All right, so here is my assessment of this situation. If that happens, if Callahan is fired at the end of the season, Amy Adams Strunk has made a decision based on feelings alone. She has not thought about this monetarily because she signed Brian Callahan to a 5-year contract, and we're still paying Vrabel next year.
Mm-hmm.
So if we fire Callahan, we're paying Vrabel,
Mm-hmm.
Callahan, and the new head coach.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
if that was to happen, I mean, we would know what kind of owner we got right then. Then we would know, do we have the female version of Jerry Jones, or do we have a more calm, collected owner who I hope is, because I mean, I really feel like that was the whole deal with Rand Carthon when she hired him. She trusted him to run the show, but if she ever came in and said, hey, you know, show me why this is successful, or tell me what your vision is on this, I don't think she was coming in to say, I want to do this or I'm gonna do this. I feel like it's just I feel like it's more a 50-50 there.
Here's my rebuttal to that. Do you know what's going to cost more than both of those buyouts? Empty seats in this new stadium.
Oh man,
You
that was
you
rough this
if
game.
you look at it from a financial perspective, I don't think you can take this team into a new stadium. You won't sell enough tickets. I mean, I saw the game from the broadcast. I saw the games from Buck Rising, who was at the game, who posted on Twitter. Like, this stadium was empty. People are not going to go to these games. They're not going to show up for a team that plays like this. If you're going to bring in a new regime for this new stadium, now would be the time to do it. I think that, again, I think the seat isn't hot, but I think it's warm. And if it's warm, I'll also have to say that by the end of the season, it could be very hot. Because if you're going to make that change, you have to do it now. You can't be doing this in the year you're going to an A state, just from a financial perspective. I mean, it's not going to be cheap. You got to figure it out quick. It's just not going to work.
Well, I agree with that, but at the same time, if you're, I feel like for her, it's okay. Well, this guy came in, head coach came in. He was already strapped to a quarterback who was brought in by the new GM. So I can't really hold the the coach responsible for the quarterback shortcomings if he was brought in by the GM, but I don't want to fire the GM because so I'll give him one more year. Let's give him one more year and see what happens. And at the end of that year, if at the end of the next year we are still having these conversations or we look anything remotely close to what we do right now, oh yeah, Brian Callahan's going to lose his job. He's going to be one of those mid-season or late to mid-season firings that we see where they give the interim head coach and blah, blah, blah. And then we'll see some new exciting quarterback come in with the new GM and the new head coach. And that's how it'll all happen. In my eyes,
I just feel like
but
if I'm a manager, if I'm an owner and I'm sitting there at this point in the season, and if I'm thinking in my head, there's a chance I can fire this guy midseason, I'm doing it now. I would rather cut ties if I have a thought in my head of, okay, this guy's got 6 games, I'm not giving him those 6 games. Does that make sense? Like if I have to doubt you that much that I would fire you mid-season, let's just get it over with. That's kind of where I would get at it.
My thing is that people called her an emotional owner or whatever, where it was an over emotional reaction when she fired John Robinson, and I just think that's not true.
I don't either.
Because not only did she fire him, but at the time she didn't like immediately go out and hire a GM. She took a really long time. She took people who, like vice president of VP of the player. There was a lot of people involved in finding Rand Carthon. It wasn't just her and what she thought. She didn't just want a yes man. You know what I mean? So I don't think she's a Jerry Jones type owner. And I feel like that's what the team thinks is going on right now. And I think that's the misconception that is really plaguing the Titans right now, because they feel like she's behind all these decisions, and it's not. It's the way it's actually supposed to be set up. She's the owner who trusts the GM to make the right decisions on player personnel and draft picks and all that jazz. And then the coaching staff who's supposed to develop these players and come up with the play calling and all that. That's how the chain of command actually runs, I think, in this Titans organization. I just feel like there is she's definitely not happy. I don't think anybody is with the way the Titans are right now. I just don't think any rash decisions this offseason, even if the Titans look like this every single game for the rest of the season, I don't think there's any major changes in the front office other than maybe a couple assistant coaches positions that are going to happen this offseason.
I said the same thing about Mark Vrabel last year, though. Oh, he'll get a year with Levis. I don't think they'll fire him. He'll get a year with Levis. He'll get his opportunity. Levis showed some good things. They had a good offense toward the end of the season. Like, he'll get his shot with Levis and see what happens. Next thing you know, he's gone.
I honestly get that, but I don't. I still am.
It's
one
not
of those
apples
people
to
that's
apples.
like, yeah. I just feel like he inherited a much better team than Brian Callahan.
Really? See, I disagree with that. I think Mike Vrabel's roster didn't have as much talent on it. Did it have more cohesion? Yes. I don't think it had as much talent as Callahan's coming. I don't. I don't. I mean, look,
Dude,
we
he
had
had AJ Brown and Corey
he did,
Davis and Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill all on the same offense.
but I think
And he
other than
pretty stout ass defense too.
other than AJ Brown going into this season, we thought that Calvin Ridley, D Hop was a better talent than what Vrabel had. I think we would have said other than AJ Brown. I'll give you AJ Brown, but I think from a raw talent perspective, I think Callahan's team came in. If you look at the secondary, and I know there was injuries, but if you look at Snead, if you look at Awuzie, I mean, if you look at what they did at these positions, I think we had higher hopes for the talent on this team than
Agreed.
we did for
Higher
Vrabel's team.
hopes. Higher hopes. Agreed. That's the difference. Is we didn't have expectation with Mike's Vrabel teams because we didn't know who those players were. We didn't know who AJ Brown was when he was drafted. I mean, we thought we did, but we didn't know. We didn't know who Derrick Henry was when we drafted him. Again, we thought we did, but we didn't know. When they showed up on the NFL turf, it was much different. And so far, most of Ryan Carthon's picks have done well, but I mean, let's be honest. This offense, a lot of the pieces that I'll be honest, a lot of the pieces that I thought were going to be really strategically well placed pieces weren't. Like
Exactly.
Tyler Boyd, if you ask me, Tyler Boyd was a waste of a contract, and I don't even see him. I mean, he might make a roster on a minimum contract next year, but that's it. I don't see him making a roster next year.
I agree, but also at the same time, like I think even that's on the coaching, what they're able to get out of these players. I think that if you took Mike Vrabel's COVID team and put them up against this unit, I take Mike Vrabel all day. I take Mike Vrabel. I just think he was able, and I'm not saying I wish Vrabel was still here.
I will
think this
say he was able to
needed evolve.
squeeze more out of a player.
When the Titans played under Mike Vrabel, you knew they were going to be physical. They were going to try their best to beat you at the line of scrimmage. They were going to be chippy. They had an identity. They were just a physical, hard-nosed, run it down your throat football team. That's just what they were. And we as Titans fans, we got to a point where we didn't like that anymore. We wanted them to be flashy. We wanted them to throw the ball down the field. And now we're sitting here like, just give us that back. Give us that physicality back. Give us the run game, what got us to the championships in the first place. Like, that's what we're missing. I don't know. I'm not saying that we were too quick to judge as Titans fans or they were too quick to judge as an organization. I'm just saying, like, I feel like coaches have been fired for worse. And let's be honest, like Callahan right now is 0-3 against coaches who have either lost their job or are going to, more than likely. I mean, you take Eberflus, you take the Jets. I can't even think. And then
Yeah,
Doug Peterson that he just played. Yeah. Doug Peterson. I mean, that's not good. When you look at just that alone, like that tells me you're not getting your players ready to go out and play. Like, that's what I see. This just looks like an unprepared, in over their head football team. But I'm also the same guy that a few weeks ago said, all I want to see is this team to be in it and play close and still get a good draft pick. And I can't be mad about that. I guess I have to stand by that. So here we are.
All I'm saying is, for me, it's all about expectation. When Vrabel came in, we were expecting him to make a good, disciplined, defensively good football team, which we already were. I mean, for all accounts, the season he came in and the season before, the stats are almost identical. And I didn't even realize this until it was time for him to get fired. And then when his job became in question, all of a sudden, then I started looking back on these stats and started looking at them in a different way. And yeah, I mean, it seemed like he had a much more structured, I guess, more connection with the players. And that I do kind of miss. I will say that it seems like the players are getting a little frustrated, especially with the comments coming from Jeffrey Simmons about how it's hard to be a leader on this team. You know, when you keep saying, I want to play better, I want to do better, you know, you just get tired of it. And he's like, I don't have any answers.
Yeah, you run out of words, I think was his quote. You just don't have
any words. Yeah, and I mean, I get that. I understand. I'm just saying I want the fact that we wanted something different from Mike Vrabel, I don't think is a bad thing. I just think that the expectations that Titans fans were given coming into Vrabel's first season compared to coming into Callahan's first season are completely different. As Titans fans coming into the Vrabel thing, we were just happy to have a winning season after we changed coaches. As a Titans fan into Callahan's, we were actually expecting a high flying Saints offense or Arizona's offense. I mean, there are a couple different teams that actually play like this. The Rams on a regular basis, Detroit Lions, and that's what we thought we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't, and now we're kind of upset. And I get it, but at the same time, you have to look at what we were given. I think the expectations. Obviously, they try to hype us up for every season, but I think the expectations were set a little bit high. Not a little bit, extremely high from where we are right now. That's the problem. I think expectation to where we landed is the big difference there. Because if you look at Vrabel's expectation to where we landed is pretty much the same. But Callahan's expectation to where we actually landed, can't even get that on screen. It's so low.
Well,
and that's the point.
Yeah, and I mean, not to make an analogy, but let's say you own a business and you bring in a new manager and some new workers. And you're promised that things are going to be more efficient, you're going to do things differently, you're going to come in and fix things, and then that business goes bankrupt. I mean, do you fire all the workers or do you fire the manager? That's kind of where I'm left at. Like, how much? Again, we go back to the percentages thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we were promised things as fans the same way the ownership was promised things from a coaching staff, and it's just how many more chances do they get? And yeah, that last comment, like it's. I also cared that we kept losing home playoff games, but I also care about a team that can't get to one. Like, at least we were getting to those home playoff games. Like we had a roster, we had personnel, we had a coach who were able to get to that step. This team can't look competitive on an NFL football field. Like, that's my problem. This should not have crashed and burned this bad. Could I understand this team going 6 wins, 5 wins, or 7 wins, even 5 wins? Could I see that? Yeah, I guess so. Coming into the season, I did not expect a 3-win football team talking about hoping for a number 1 draft pick so you can get a new quarterback. So yeah, when you talk about expectations, that's definitely the biggest problem. I'm curious how many chances that they get.
That is the question right there. And I guess we'll find out as we head longer into this season. There's a lot of things that we're going to be, I guess, questioning and finding out the answers to as we go.
A lot can change in 4 games. Stay with us. It only gets more exciting from here. It's like a drama, like a soap opera TV show. It's like, what product are we going to get this week?
Another mayonnaise product. Spicy mayonnaise. Which is actually delicious. I don't know if you've ever tried the sriracha mayonnaise, but
it's good.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Are they going to reboot the cologne? I didn't get my hands on the first batch. I was wondering if that's going to be like a re-release thing. Do they have to? I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
I would assume not, but yeah, we'll see, I guess. I know, right? I
missed my chance. I thought it'd be a good holiday gift. There might still be some floating out there. Make a good stocking stuffer.
Anyway. All right. So yeah, if you stayed with us, we appreciate it, man. If you haven't yet, join us on YouTube. You get exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. So and if you follow us on Facebook or Twitter, just share us out, man. We do this for free. Realest team, realest people you'll find in a podcast, obviously, because I'm not good at this. I just like to talk about the Titans. Thank you again. Until next time.
Tighten up.
Tighten up.